My life was in Vienna, Austria. I was born in 1932. We lived on the Marie-Hilfe-Straße, which is one of the ring streets around a cosmopolitan city. It was my father, mother, and my sister and I. Hitler came through the streets in his car with his brigade in Vienna, and of course all our drapes had to be drawn all the time. We lived in darkness. They were big red velvet drapes from ceiling to floor, but being 6 years old and hearing all the commotion, I had to sneak out on our balcony. We had a balcony all the way across the apartment. And of course, I saw what was going on, Hitler and his crew, and of course, when my mother found out I was outside, oh, did I get punished.
I rushed home. I was at a luncheon. I forgot that I had a luncheon today. That's UCSB, the tower over there. And of course, when the tide's out, you walk all the way. And I've done that too.
Then we heard they were going to gather all the Jewish men for a work camp. Well, 2 days later, my father left. My mother and I and my sister were still in our apartment, and then one day, uniformed men came to our apartment to look for my father. They looked in the closets, underneath the bed, all over, and the three of us were huddled in the living room. Very much frightened. Well, soon after that, we left. A lot happened during this 6-year-old period that just stuck with me. And our trip to the US and our traveling at night, and it was just scary. I was scared all the time. School was difficult because I was an outsider. I never fit. Recess I hated because I knew the kids would play and I would be standing against a fence waiting for it to end. And I was just different. Language wasn't good. My clothes were different. I was fat. All I wanted to do is be like everybody else. Of course, that was the trend there. You know, the kids like to look alike and dress alike, and I never quite made it. My sister and I we didn't do very well in school. We just never felt at home. And my mother always sent me out to play and have a good time. She says, don't fill your head with all the horrible things that happened. We start afresh. This is the country where you start anew, you make a life for yourself. My mother adjusted very well. She says, as long as we have our freedom, we're alive, we're healthy, we're okay. So we don't have much to eat once in a while. So it doesn't really matter. My mother had a wonderful attitude. My father had a terrible attitude when we did see him. You know, he had a big ego. He supported the family well in Vienna. He got everything for us, a lovely car, best of schools, a nanny, cook sometimes. He couldn't do anything in the US. He just left. So he tried to find his way other than taking care of us, because he knew he couldn't. I guess that was his way of coping. It was really hard getting a job. So my mother decided, maybe she decided before that, see, the job applications all had your religion on it. And I was put down Jewish. Well, my mother was sure the reason they didn't hire me was because we were Jewish. So she said, from now on, we're not Jewish anymore. You understand that? We have nothing to do with the Jewish religion. We don't go to synagogue. We're not Jewish. I was taught from the time this all started, you know, just never say anything. So I learned this, and it carried through when I grew older. My mother felt, by not saying much, because there was a lot of anti-Semitism still in the States at that time, and I didn't look quote-unquote Jewish, so I was never taken for a Jewish child. So that helped in a way. I was more accepted. My sister, of course, looked very, very Jewish, and so did my mother. We had a lot of bad luck in the family. My sister got juvenile diabetes and polio, which she ended up in a wheelchair in a bad case of diabetes. She had sores all over her body and so forth. My mother, at that time, her face was all disfigured from a freak accident. She was practically blinded in both eyes. I was the lucky one. My mother picked out my husband because she was trying very hard to take care of my sister. The diabetes got worse, and she was in a wheelchair, and she needed a lot of care. She just couldn't take care of me, too. The only thing she forgot is that I didn't really want to marry him. I didn't want to marry him. But I told my mother that, and she says, "You just don't know what you want, you know. I'm supposed to be the child that's always quiet and never says anything and sort of does what, you know, I'm told," which I did most of my life. I don't know if you want to hear this, but let me tell you the ironic part of this whole thing. He knew I was Jewish, but then he tells me after we were married, "Please don't tell anybody of my family that you're Jewish." At that time, his so-called father told him, "By the way, you're not my son. I adopted you when you were very young and you didn't know it. Your mother had you out of wedlock." And my husband asked, "Well, why didn't she marry the man," at that time you don't get abortions, "the man that she conceived by?" And he told her the reason she wasn't allowed to marry him was because his parents were Jewish and they wouldn't have a shiksa in the family. And the mother was Gentile. I thought it was so hilarious. Because, you know, I wasn't allowed to tell them I'm Jewish, and here my husband is half Jewish. I kept so much hidden. It seemed like so much was bottled up in me that it affected my whole life and my relationships and my always running away and not saying anything. It seemed like I didn't have a mind of my own. I didn't even know what my mind was. I never said anything, you know. Just like I'd get married, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. I now have a mind of my own. I don't think it's right not to know. And that's why now I tell my kids as much as I can. But my son is still a lot like I was, you know. I'm not sure he wants to hear it. So there I go again, you know. I don't want to force it on him. I mean, he knows pretty much, but he doesn't want to hear details. So what I've done, my granddaughter, she's asked me some questions, and I've written things about my history. And my grandson wanted to know because he's going to talk about it at school. So I thought, good for him. And the ironic thing is, one of the kids said, one said they were Chinese or Japanese or something, and one of the kids asked my grandson, Adam, "And what are you, Adam?" He said, "I'm Jewish." So I thought, gee, that's great.